The Met Gala invite list just cost the world's most famous socialite her entire career. When Anna Wintour strikes a name from the guest list, the silence that follows isn't just awkward, it is industry exile. Phones go cold, publicist emails vanish, and a global movement begins in the shadow of a single snub. The power dynamic shifted the moment that invitation was revoked, changing fashion history forever. You have just stepped off a very high speed, very lucrative treadmill. In 2026, that silence grew louder than ever before. You might have heard the rumors about who was skipping the red carpet, but the real story is not just about who stayed home. It is about the money, the optics, and the sudden, sharp refusal of the elite to normalize corporate dominion over art. The Met Gala needs $22 million to fund the Costume Institute, and historically, it has been willing to do almost anything to secure that check. But when Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and his wife, Lauren Sanchez, stepped in as lead sponsors for the May 4th event, the industry hit a wall. This was not just another fashion house throwing a party. This was the moment that the tech industry officially bought the keys to the kingdom. You have to wonder, where do you draw the line when the sponsors are essentially the architects of the culture you are trying to celebrate? For some, that line was drawn in November of 2025 when the sponsorship was first confirmed and the backlash began to ferment behind closed studio doors. Now, here is where it gets interesting, because the boycott did not start with a protest line. It started with empty chairs. Consider the case of Zendaya, a 7-time attendee and a former co-chair. When she opted out, the public wanted to attribute it to a simple need for rest after years of grueling press tours. But in the rarefied air of Hollywood, people see the optics. They see the message sent by absence. Then there is Meryl Streep, whose refusal to co-chair was framed by representatives as a distaste for the gala scene itself. But think about the timing. The cultural resonance of her return to the world of high fashion satire makes her distance from this specific gala feel far more calculated than a casual preference. Her absence is a performative act of defiance. If you find yourself enjoying this deep dive into the intersection of power and prestige, hit subscribe. I break down these cultural shifts every week, and we have a lot more ground to cover. Sticking around ensures you do not miss the next layer of this investigation, because the most interesting part of this story is not who skipped, but why they were willing to risk the social cost to do it. The industry has been a feedback loop of brand management and billionaire funding for decades. But suddenly, the image laundering that once worked seamlessly has become a liability for the celebrities who need to remain relatable to their own fan bases. Look at what happened in April of 2026, when the streets of New York were papered with wheat-pasted posters demanding a boycott of the Bezos Gala. Protesters dropped vials of yellow liquid at the steps of the museum. It was a visceral, jarring reminder of the labor allegations that define the Amazon warehouse experience. For a celebrity, walking past those protesters on the way into the gala turned from a PR annoyance into a genuine moral hazard. If you attend, you own the optics of the brand that paid for the door. You become a billboard for a company that many of your younger, more politically active fans consider a primary antagonist in the fight for economic justice. It creates a trap. You are damned if you attend, and you are accused of hypocrisy if you stay silent. So you withdraw. You make your absence the statement. Ever wonder if this is actually changing the way these events function, or if it is just noise? The truth is, the economic model of the Met Gala is incredibly fragile. With a budget that is essentially self-funded by donors, losing the media impact value, which, mind you, hit over $1.4 billion in 2024, is a genuine disaster for the museum's bottom line. All right, this is the one I've been saving for you. The real shift is not just in the guest list. It is in the shift of the power structure from fashion to tech. In the past, tech billionaires needed fashion to prove they had taste, to prove they were part of the cultural conversation. Now the shift is reversed. They are using the gala as a platform of dominion. They don't just want to attend. They want to be the ones who define the art. When the lead sponsorship slot is bought by a platform owner, the event stops being a curatorial choice and starts being a social acquisition. And that realization, that is what makes the boycott so potent. It is a reclamation of the narrative. When top-tier designers and socialites start saying no to the biggest check in the room, they aren't just protecting their personal brands. They are signaling that the era of blind complicity is officially over. Once you see the gala through this lens, you cannot unsee the transactional nature of every single gown on that carpet. It changes the entire prestige of the event. So there you have it. The 2026 Met Gala boycott is not just a bunch of stars being difficult. It is the canary in the coal mine for prestige institutions everywhere. If you lose the trust of the cultural vanguard, the money, No matter how many millions it reaches, will eventually stop being enough to hold the whole thing together. If you found this breakdown useful, please share it with someone who loves pop culture as much as you do, and hit subscribe so you do not miss the next deep dive. We are constantly tracking how the landscape of these massive events is evolving, and next time, I am pulling back the curtain on the actual, unscripted reality of how these mega donors are vetting their guests before the invite even leaves the office. You really don't want to miss that. See you in the next one.